everybody. I'm Dr. Cindy with the Positively Altered podcast. I am a chiropractic internist and nutritionist, and we love to discuss things on the podcast that are health related. Physical, spiritual, emotional, you name it, with absolutely no filter. We just say what we feel like in hopes that we can educate you just a little bit further. Today is no exception, and we're going to talk about one of my favorite topics, autoimmunity. And the reason it's one of my favorites is because it's so prevalent. There's so many people in the United States and now the UK, because my next guest is from there, suffering from autoimmune conditions. And unfortunately, in the world of medicine, there aren't always a lot of alternatives, but in our functional medicine space, we know we have some really great answers. So grab a snack, make it a healthy one. Hang tight. We're going to listen to a couple sponsors, and then we're going to be right back with my guest to talk about energy and immunity.
Hello, my name is Heather Lord, and I am the COO of Professional Health Products. Cutting corners is an all too common practice in the dietary supplement industry. When my father founded Professional Health Products, he sourced the cleanest, most biologically active ingredients from around the globe. Today, that commitment remains, which is why the finest healthcare practitioners, like Dr. Cindy, have trusted us for more than 40 years. We oversee the entire process in our manufacturing facility, from sourcing and formulation to manufacturing and labeling. Today, we offer over 300 unique products that can be tailored to the nutritional and homeopathic needs of each individual. Most recently, we launched a proprietary genetic test, allowing our practitioners to get even more dialed in to their patients' health. To learn more about Professional Health Products, please talk to your practitioner or visit our website at phpltd.com.
Today, your life is going to be altered. I'm Dr. Cindy.
Welcome to Infinity. We have worked hard to create an electronic claims website that is simple and user-friendly. This is the public side. You can log into your personal web portal here. This is your dashboard. You can personalize it to your liking here. Our main focus has been to allow you to submit and edit claims as easy as possible. You will find our claims editor and claims processing is simple to use and straightforward. Our quick action bar is where you can find your most important information. Most of these icons will take you directly to the claims the number represents. You can easily view if you have any messages in your inbox of any unread alerts by looking for these blue numbers. To view the rest of our training videos to get the most of your Infinity experience, click this icon. We hope you find this web portal simple and easy to use. Thanks for letting us serve you.
I'm Dr. Cindy. Who wouldn't want to join me for the Positively Altered podcast? Welcome back to the Positively Altered podcast. I am Dr. Cindy, and my guest today is Nicole Goode. And I love this. Before I introduce her, I have to tell you, so her company is called Good Health. I mean, I don't think she could have a better name if she picked it herself for the name of her practice. And we're going to talk about functional medicine and all kinds of different things within that realm. Welcome to the podcast, Nicole Goode.
Thank you so much for having me. It's great to be here.
Oh my gosh, what a great name, truly.
Yeah, I know. It's one of those, anybody in my family sets up a business, it's good something. It's just, how can you not use it?
I need to steal it like Dr. Goode. I mean, how can people not come if like my name, it's Dr. Howard. That's, all I get is Three Stooges jokes. I got nothing in that realm. So fabulous name. It's really fun. Here's where I want to start, right? You've written an awesome book called Supercharge Your Energy, Strengthen Your Immunity. And I want to hit on those two things today because I think they're fascinating that they're in the title of your book. Let's go immunity first, right? Because we hear about the immune system. People are like, I want to strengthen my immune system. What does that really mean to strengthen your immune system?
Yeah. So I think this is something that I touch on in the book. And so the book's called, like you said, Optimal Use, Supercharge Your Energy, Strengthen Your Immunity. And for me, so my work, I'm a certified functional medicine practitioner, and my work really started in autoimmune disease. And it started there because that's what I have. So it's a personal journey. I've been on the patient side of things, and now on the practitioner side of things. And for me, the two things that we always see are low energy and low immunity. But there's two different ways of looking. If we start with the immunity picture, like you said, there's two different ways of looking at that immune picture. When I think most people, when we say immunity or immune system, people think automatically of, am I getting sick? So, you know, do I feel ill? Am I getting a cold? Have I got a virus? And I think that's what people sort of think, like, oh, I need an immune system to stop me from picking up a virus, from getting a cold. And in the book, I talk about actually how we should talk about it is immune resilience. And I think this terminology is really important to me as a message to get out there to people, because actually it's the loss of immune resilience, by which we mean how much can your immune system cope with before it is overwhelmed. And that is really important, because wherever that barrier is for you, and that is different, that tolerance level is different for everybody, that is where you will become really sick. And I don't just mean a virus whereby, you know, you'll have it for a week and you'll feel better. We're talking about chronic illnesses, autoimmune diseases, or burnout. And I think that's really a really important concept that people really understand, is that there is a difference between immunity and immune resilience. So when I was looking at the title of the book, we used immunity because it's the word that most people understand. But when we talk about it and I'm introducing the concept of the immune system, that's when I start sort of, let's talk actually about immune resilience, because this is the thing that's really important. And if we lose that immune resilience, then we're going to get sick. And the energy takes a hit then as well. But it's the development of autoimmune diseases that is obviously the worst sort of outcome from that, or chronic illnesses, but things that we're going to live with for a long time.
Right. So I think it's interesting, because I know as we walked through, the entire COVID experience many years ago, people were walking around saying, well, I need to do something so that I don't get COVID, right? We do get sick. We are exposed to things. I mean, I always joke, if you have an orifice and you have skin, you're always exposed, right? Yeah, so there's no way, no matter how great your immune system is, to prevent something coming in that wants to do damage.
Yeah.
Right.
And I always say, I think one of my most popular posts that I ever put out on social media just said on the front, don't blame the kids for making you sick. And there is that argument of, okay, if you've got good immunity and you're looking after yourself, you shouldn't pick everything up that your kids bring home from school, because you should have resilience to some of those. You should have some immunity to some of those because you've come into contact with them before. But you only build that immunity if you've come into contact with things before. So you've got to have got sick. And we're human. We come up against bacteria and toxins and viruses every single day. We can't get away from that. It's not about avoiding everything. It's not about never being sick. And I think as well, when, as practitioners or, nutritional therapists, and as we put things out on social media, if we put up that we're sick, I think people are almost like, you get ill? And it's like, you're a doctor, you're a practitioner, you're a nutritional therapist, like, you shouldn't get sick. You should know what you're doing. And it's like, we all get sick. And that's fine. Your immune system is doing what it's meant to do. It's come into, and this is a really important thing with autoimmune disease as well, because I think our immune system is supposed to respond to things. It's doing its normal job. And that should happen. So when we come into contact with a virus, our immune system should create inflammation. Inflammation's not always a bad thing. These things should happen. It's when we lose that resilience and we get chronic drivers that mean that inflammation is becoming chronic and that immune system is constantly switched on. That's when it's a problem. But we all get sick. We all come into contact with things.
So other than getting sick a lot, let's say, what are some other signs that people can recognize that their resilience is low?
Yeah. So I think the first thing is low energy. Not necessarily, we often talk about it as fatigue. And I think if you say fatigue, people think like a chronic fatigue syndrome. They sort of think you've got to be that bad that you can't get out of bed. So I think referring to it as low energy is probably better in terms of how people understand what that means. And that might just be that you just don't feel like you've quite got the ability to do everything that you used to do. Or you get tired maybe around 3:00 in the afternoon, you've got that sort of slump a little bit more. Or you just wake up and you're just not feeling refreshed. So you've had a good night's sleep, but actually you just wake up, you still feel a little bit sluggish and groggy and not quite ready to take on the day. And I'm sure we've all experienced that at some point. So I think that sort of low energy, and it's that sort of where it feels a bit different to normal. If you've been out and, you know, you've had a really heavy night out and you've been down the gym and exercising and you feel tired, you're fine. You're going to feel tired. So it's that tired where you sort of shouldn't feel that tired. I think gut disruption as well is another one that we see with that low immunity. So if you're having any sort of IBS type symptoms or bloating after meals, more food sensitivities coming in as well. So quite often people will not sort of pick up on it, but sort of say, oh, you know, I think maybe I'm reacting to tomatoes and I've always eaten them. Things like that. So a few more of those food sensitivities. And again, that's this tolerance level is getting lower in the body. Hormonal imbalances as well. So PMS getting worse for women, irregular cycles, weight gain around the middle as well, things like that. So looking for those sort of hormonal picture as well. And brain fog. Brain fog is a big one. That's, I think, most people that come to me are experiencing brain fog to some extent, whether that's that, you know, their memory's being impacted or whether it's more just they don't feel like they're quite firing as fast as they used to. You know, some people describe it as they sort of feel a bit like their head's in the clouds. They can't quite concentrate the same. You know, there's lots of different ways of describing brain fog, but I think that's probably one of the most common symptoms that people experience.
Yeah, it's interesting to me. When you hit on the first thing that you said, when you can't do things like you used to do anymore, it sends me down this thought process of what a lot of people say when I see them in practice as well, of like, well, I'm just getting older, right? So, yeah. Oh, look, and for those of you that aren't watching and listening, Nicole just rolled her eyes. So we're on the same page here already, but like, I'd love to explore that a little bit with you because I think we fall into that trap of, as we spend more decades on this planet, it's acceptable to go, my energy is poor, right? I don't think clearly as much anymore. There's, you know, a lot of information in my brain, so I can't remember everything. And I don't know that I buy that, right? Like, I think those are just excuses for some of the changes that we see.
Far too much. And actually, I find, and this maybe is not the case for everybody, but particularly for me in clinic, I have a service called Optimal You. It's the longevity service, and it's all about preventatives. It's about jumping in early. And it's full of men. And then I have the immune health, the people who have actually really got to the point of being sick. And it's full of women. And I would say it flips. There's probably about 80% women in the immune health service and about 80% men in the longevity service. And women, I think, put things, and I do think there's an element of it's down to hormones, because I think women are much more likely to make an excuse of, oh, it's time of the month, or it's I'm reaching perimenopause, you know, so we have lots of hormonal time periods in our life where we can blame things on. I think women also have this caring attitude of we're caring for everybody else. And I think as much as, and I know this is probably a little bit controversial in this day and age, but as much as we sort of say, you know, men and women are equal and everything like this, the women still generally do a little bit more around the house, do a little bit more with the kids, are also working and doing everything else that the men were doing that women didn't used to do. And that's a great thing. I'm not saying that that's a bad thing, but I think we just have, as women, we do have this thing of just push through, keep going, put everybody else first, and leave ourselves on the sort of back burner. And I do think that age thing is one of those excuses. I think age, busy, I'm just a bit stressed. You know, I'm just tired because I've got kids. You know, I think all of those things become excuses. And because we're all doing that in a very like modern kind of chaotic world that we live in, I think we see it as normal. And it's not normal.
I agree. And we need to start using the word common, not normal, right? Yeah, it's common. Absolutely. We see it, but yeah, there's nothing normal. And it's interesting because I don't think it's an equality issue. And I agree. It's somewhat, you know, we might upset a few people by the things we say, and that's okay because we have no filter here on the podcast, but I don't think it's an equality issue, right? I think it's how we're actually wired. Men and women are just wired differently. You know, so that nurturing, taking care of versus pounding our chest, killing food, you know.
I do. And I think, and we forget that the world around us has changed dramatically even in, compared to our parents or our grandparents, which is not that far back, but genetically our bodies and how they are wired has not really changed that much since we were cavemen.
Right.
So there's a huge difference there between society and genetics, and how fast both of those things move. And there's no getting away from the fact that society moves thousands of times faster than our genetics do, and we can't get away from that. But I do think, I think there is an element of that nurture sort of picture that women do naturally have, or most women naturally have. And like I said, we can't be general. There are always exceptions to the rule, but it is something that I do see as a common pattern. And men will come into clinic and quite often will say, well, I've got a bit of brain fog and I need to be able to be firing. I've got to perform well at work. And they're really adamant that is what they're doing it for. They have to perform well. Whereas women will come in and say, well, I've got brain fog, but it's fine. I'll deal with it. And so it's just the attitude of how it's dealt with is very different.
Yeah, it's very interesting. Walk me down. I'm curious. So the men that come into the clinic on this longevity path, what does that mean? What makes up the longevity work that you do for men?
Yeah. So I think, we're saying for men, I would love it to be for everyone. I want women to do this more. I think one of the big things that functional medicine is so good for is preventative medicine. And the earlier that we can jump in with things, the better. So quite often people who are coming into that longevity sort of picture, they're coming in and they're saying, I don't quite feel like I've got the energy I used to. I've maybe got a bit of brain fog. I'm maybe getting a bit of joint pain. And they are the people that are not willing to accept that. And that is the way we should be. We shouldn't accept it, as we've, already sort of discussed. So that's that's that longevity picture. It is about protecting your health, preventing, particularly with things like autoimmune disease, we forget so I do autoantibody testing, which is around sort of the whole body. And actually we do that over in America. We send samples from the UK over to America because you guys are way ahead of us on this. But we do autoantibody testing, and these autoantibodies will come up years, if not decades, before you would get diagnosed with an autoimmune disease. So before you would tick all the boxes of having a disease state in conventional medicine. And if we can find these things and rebalance that immune system, the aim is you never get the autoimmune disease, or at the very least you push it back. So you don't get it at 40, you get it at 70. And, and I'd much rather start with something at that age than I would at 40 and have, 30 extra years for it to get worse and worse and worse. So it's that sort of prevention and protecting your health and doing as much as possible as you can to say, actually, I'm not going to accept these symptoms and I'm going to do something to protect my health and age well. I think, we all, like you said, we are all living longer. We'll know we're getting older and we're going to live longer, and we all want to live that. Well, I always say there's no point in living longer if you're not living it healthy. We don't want to live. I think actually on the first page of the book, it says, which one would you choose? Do you want to be like 80, but live 80 years well? Or do you want to live to 120 and live 60 of those years ill? Nobody would choose to live to 120. Not one. I very much doubt one person would pick that. They're all going to pick 80 in good health. And that, I think, is really important. It's not just longevity.
Right. Maybe until you're 79 and a half, Nicole, and then they call you to get past the 80 mark. Right? Because as you get closer to that number, sometimes the attitude changes a little bit, right?
Yeah.
So in the autoimmune panel that you look at, the antibodies, what do you most commonly see and find in patients that they wouldn't know they had if they didn't run the panel?
Yeah. So what we're looking at is sort of early signs of that autoimmune picture. And so that we generally start with if we see red flags of autoimmunity, so if we're starting to see some symptoms that we sort of think there could be an autoimmune or immune dysregulation picture going on, then we'll generally start with kind of a full body panel. So we'll look at, obviously there's lots of different things that could flag up. So we'll look to see, is there any autoimmunity flagging up in the brain, in the joints, all different, in the liver, all different sort of areas of the body, and it will assess everything. And we can sort of see, is there an area that we need to work on? Is there any immune dysregulation going on? And that can be really impactful for people. For some people, it can be a bit scary. There's a lot of people, particularly if they're going down that autoimmune path, they've maybe been passed around lots of different doctors. They don't know what's going on with them. Quite often with the autoimmune picture, we get that period where people don't get answers. I certainly went through that. It took me 15 years to get a diagnosis. So I've been there and I know how frustrating that can be. And some people react differently. Some people do the test because I want to know, and they get the answer and it's almost a relief to know that actually something is wrong and it's not just in their head. Other people are sort of so exhausted with being tested and checked that it kind of scares them when something comes up. So I think people do react differently, and some people want to do it, but it's very much a preventative picture. So I always say to people, this is really jumping in early. If these show up, you could have 10, 15 years before an autoimmune disease happens if you do nothing. If you actually then in that 10, 15 years work on your health, that 10, 15 years may become 30, 40, 50 years. It may never happen. So it's a good thing to know.
So let's run down the Hashimoto's rabbit hole, can we, for a minute? Because I know in practice, there's probably not a day that goes by that we don't either diagnose or somebody walks in with the diagnosis of Hashimoto's. And I think it's underdiagnosed, number one, because people aren't running the right tests. And two, I think it's also just treated inappropriately a lot of times. So what is your thought on proper testing and next steps once you receive a diagnosis like Hashimoto's?
Yeah, I do a lot of work with Hashimoto's. I think the big thing, I don't know whether it's the same in the US, so correct me if it's different over there, but here particularly, people get told that they have hypothyroid. So that's the terminology that's generally used. And they're not told whether that is just hypothyroid or whether it is Hashimoto's hypothyroidism. And there's a really important difference, because with one, there's autoimmune and immune dysregulation going on with the Hashimoto's, and with the other, it's hypothyroid. The thyroid function is maybe not quite optimal, may even just be subclinical, and they'll still just get told it's just hypothyroid. So we don't differentiate. I actually have on my questionnaire that people fill in when they come into clinic. So I will have a question where they put their diagnosis, and then I have a box to tick for people saying, do you have an autoimmune disease? And I can't tell you how many people put an autoimmune disease down, and they may even write Hashimoto's. Most of them will write hypothyroid. Some will write Hashimoto's, and they will tick no for the autoimmune disease. Because even if they have been told Hashimoto's, they haven't been told that that's an autoimmune disease. They've been told they've got a thyroid condition. So I think that's where mismanagement comes in. People don't understand quite what they're being diagnosed with. So they think thyroid condition, give me levothyroxine and I'm good to go. That sorts me out. The problem with that is if it is Hashimoto's and there's that underlying immune dysregulation going on, then we are only dealing with the thyroid function part. So we're not dealing with the immune dysregulation. And there's also different parts of that thyroid pathway that can be going wrong. So your levothyroxine is helping you to produce enough TSH so that you produce thyroid hormones. So it's actually working on the brain, not actually on the thyroid at all, for the first. Then your thyroid has to produce those hormones, so your T4 and your T3. And you've got to convert your T4 to T3, because T3 is the one that's used by the body. But 90% of what you produce is T4. So that conversion has to be working well. And in some people, they'll be taking the levothyroxine, doing everything, and they're still not feeling right. And it might actually be that, yes, now the TSH is balanced. They're making hormones, but they're not converting the T4 hormone into T3. So that can be another area that's gone wrong. It could be then that the cells are not actually taking up the T3. So that's another area that can be going wrong. Or it could be that the autoimmunity is actually the problem, and the thyroid function is now balanced on the medication, but the immune system is causing the issue. So there's lots of different parts of that thyroid picture that can be going wrong. And whilst the medication is important, and I'm not anti the conventional medicine approach, it's not the whole picture. And I think that's what people need to understand. You're dealing with that first part of Hashimoto's, and you're not dealing with the rest of the issues that could be at play.
Yeah. So here in the United States, here's what we see. Doctors are running TSH, which in my opinion tells us absolutely nothing in terms of whole picture.
Same in the UK, that's all they do. TSH. If you're lucky, you might get T4, but.
Correct. A reflex to T4. Yep. So same here. And what people, to your point, don't understand is we're really looking at pituitary function. We're not looking at thyroid function anyway. Exactly. Right?
Yeah.
So we're not working up the thyroid here properly. And then what I've seen over the years is the challenges. I think one of the reasons that the docs, the endocrinologists here aren't even running the antibodies is because there's no medication for them, right? So they're treating the hypo or the hyper with the medication and disregarding the fact that there's Hashimoto's or autoimmune issues in the first place because we don't have a drug, right? And in our world of functional medicine, there's a lot of things that we can do. So we tend to run the full panel with, to your point, free total T4, T3, reverse T3 antibodies, right. And the list goes, it's a big panel, right? The list goes on because we do have some answers to work on the immune system to get it to behave properly. So I don't think it's any different, across the pond, as we say, right? I think it's the same challenges by you and by us that people are not getting worked up appropriately, and therefore they're being mistreated, mismanaged, misdiagnosed. And to your point, they don't even know they have an autoimmune problem.
Yeah. And that's a big problem. And I think we've got to try and start reframing the wording that's used around thyroid conditions so that people do understand what they've actually got and what they're dealing with, because people are missing that opportunity to work on that immune function. And that's sad because it means they're on medication and they think, that's the really sad bit, is they think they're doing everything to help themselves. And that really, I think that's really upsetting, is they actually think they are doing everything. They don't realize that there is more that they should be doing. They don't know because nobody's told them.
Right.
And I think that's really hard. So I think educating people around it, particularly around that Hashimoto's picture, is really important.
Yeah, one of the things I see, which makes me even I can't decide if it's sad or angry. I think it depends on the day what kind of mood I'm in, whether I'm feeling sad. It depends on my hormones, Nicole, whether I'm sad or angry about some of those things. But is that too, when people finally are so sick, right, because they were mismanaged, then they wind up on immunosuppressant drugs, which makes absolutely zero sense to me because we're actually trying to get the immune system to behave properly, not suppress it. Right? Because we need the immune system to function, right? Yeah. We need it to be resilient and productive and to behave itself. And that's where I find even more detriment in this space is, now we wind up with a pneumonia or something else because we're immunosuppressed.
Yeah.
And the diagnoses continue.
And that really annoys me with the wording we get, particularly around supplements, because we get that wording of like immune boosting supplements. And everybody, so many people come to me and they're like, well, should I be on some stuff to boost my immune system? I'm like, and this is, the opposite of what you're talking about with the suppression, but it's no, we don't want a suppressed immune system and we don't want a boosted immune system. We want a balanced immune system. That's really key. And all these and it's probably just terminology, it's just a terminology thing, but it's so wrong because we don't want to boost the immune system. And, it's that will drive autoimmunity. You'll end up with autoimmune diseases if your immune system is constant, if you've got, the genetic predisposition and everything like that. But it is a trigger for autoimmunity if your immune system is constantly in overdrive. Even if you don't have the genetic predisposition for autoimmune diseases, you're going to feel more tired. If your immune system is in overdrive all the time, a lot of the repair in your body and the toxin clear out and all of this sort of detoxification, everything like that isn't working as well. So your body's not going to be as healthy, even if you don't get an autoimmune disease. You're still going to get an impact from having an immune system in overdrive, in the same way that you will get get problems from having an immune system in suppression, because you'll get sick all the time. You'll end up in a hospital, like you said, with something like a pneumonia or something like that. And I think people have become more aware of that post-COVID as well. I think we're more of, people are more sort of on that, not wanting a suppressed immune system. But then everybody turned to immune boosting supplements and let's get the immune system going. And it's like, no, we just want balance. We just want calm and balance.
It's so true. All right. So there are amazing specialists out there in the Hashimoto's world. Some of them go iodine. Everybody needs iodine. We're deficient in iodine, especially I'm in the Midwest in the United States, and we live in the, goiter belt we call it the goiter belt of the world, right? We're all deficient in iodine. And then you've got some that, don't touch iodine, no matter what you do, right? Don't touch the iodine if you have Hashimoto's. And I'm going to be real honest with you. I've seen it actually work for both in clinical practice. And depending on who you read and who you follow, you're getting completely different information. Do you have an opinion on iodine in general and even, with autoimmune?
Yeah, I do. And again, this is, it's one of those controversial areas again. But I'm happy to go there. And this is another really important reason why you need to know if you're hypothyroid or Hashimoto's, because the iodine picture is very different if you're, I say just hypothyroid. Obviously, it's not great being hypothyroid, but, it's better than Hashimoto's. But the iodine picture is very different. If you're hypothyroid, yes, there's a lot of hypothyroidism that is caused by iodine deficiency. So people will see iodine deficiency, iodine supplementation helping. If you've got Hashimoto's, so Hashimoto's is not an iodine deficient disease. It's actually your follicular cells are actually being destroyed by those autoimmune processes. So it's entirely different to an iodine deficient thyroiditis. And iodine actually flares up, and there is lots of science around this. And a lot of people say to me, well, is it just because it's new science? It's not new science. This has been around. I think the earliest papers I found are like 1950s, 1960s. But we did, going back before that, so sort of going back to like the 1950s and before, they gave iodine because iodine is a nutrient that is needed for the thyroid. They know that. So let's give it the nutrients that it needs. So that was the theory. And in theory, at the time, with the knowledge that they had, but like I completely understand why that was done. But the Hashimoto's isn't an iodine deficient condition. And this is where it gets really difficult. And we do see people where they've got stubbornly high antibodies and they won't come down. And quite often, if you take iodine out, because loads of thyroid supplements as well, another thing, they've all got iodine in them. So people with Hashimoto's go out and they buy a thyroid supplement that says like, thyroid plus, like, let's take that supplement. I don't know if that is the name of a supplement. I'm just making this up, but we're not going to blame anyone. But they will take it, because it's going to support the thyroid. And quite often it will actually have iodine in it. And people with Hashimoto's shouldn't actually be on iodine. So I take those supplements out and we'll start to see those antibodies come down. Eating foods with iodine in generally is okay. So people will generally, because it's difficult to overdose on iodine from our diets. So generally that is kind of okay. But there is lots and lots of science around that shows that it can flare up the autoimmune processes in Hashimoto's. So I would never give iodine to somebody with Hashimoto's. I might to somebody with hypothyroidism. Mm-hmm. So for me, that's the difference. And that's the thing that another reason why people need to know if they are hypothyroid or Hashimoto's. It is relatively difficult, I think, to be iodine deficient these days as well. We don't need that much of it, mm-hmm. In the diet. But yeah, I think maybe in some hypothyroid cases, but certainly not in Hashimoto's. It's something that I'm quite passionate about. We don't give it to people with Hashimoto's.
Yeah, it's interesting. We do a lot of iodine testing in the practice for that reason, because, that whole philosophy of more is better is not really more is better, right? If you've got adequate levels, there's no reason to supplement. If you're deficient, then it's a different conversation.
And I think the difficult bit is as well, sometimes practitioners will give somebody with Hashimoto's iodine and they will initially feel better. Mm-hmm. So I think this as well is where people get confused. They sort of think, I take iodine, I feel better. And practitioners love it because they're getting an immediate win. Right. The person is coming back to them going, I feel so much better. You're amazing. For me, I don't care if the person thinks I'm amazing or not. I care about their long-term health and whether it's doing them any good or any damage. And, they might feel better initially, but the fact is over time, iodine supplementation will make that follicular cell destruction worse. Mm-hmm. So you'll probably find that on the iodine with Hashimoto's, they may have that initial upturn of feeling better, and then they will start gradually to feel worse. And actually the iodine will start doing them damage. Right. So is it worth it for that initial win? I don't think so.
Probably not.
I would rather protect the long-term health. And I'd rather somebody turn around to me and say, this has taken a while, but now I feel better, rather than, an immediate win of, I feel great because you gave me some iodine.
Plus they're back anyway. And then you're back down to ground zero to start over. Yeah,
exactly.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. Okay. I'm going to ask you a very unfair question, right? Because we all know a proper history and exam and workup is really essential to answer the question I'm going to ask you, but I'm going to do it anyway. Okay. So for everybody out there who has been diagnosed with some sort of autoimmune condition and is struggling there, do you have 1, 2, or 3 favorite things that you can recommend people do just generally, whether it's a supplement, whether it's a lifestyle change? Like, where can they start even before they walk into a practitioner's office to help them?
Yeah. Like you said, to get real results, it's getting to the root cause. Yes. So the drivers for autoimmune disease can be different for everybody. And I could have 5 people in front of me with Hashimoto's and the drivers would be different for everybody. One of them might have a mold toxicity, one might have a gut imbalance, one might have a parasite, hormone imbalance. So they could all be different. And that's the key, is getting to the root cause. That's how we get long-term improvements in the health. But there are some things that just everybody with autoimmune can do to try and help. So anti-inflammatory diet. So getting rid of ultra processed foods, sugars, fizzy drinks, all these things, reducing alcohol, which nobody ever loves. With autoimmunity, probably getting gluten out as well. That's going to drive that sort of intestinal permeability picture and potentially drive that overactive immune system. And then getting in the foods that are anti-inflammatory. So lots of really good omega-3s, high quality protein, lots of different veg and fruit. And I don't think we have enough. In the UK, it's recommended for 5 a day. I mean, I think that's just completely deficient in what we need. So I always sort of aim for 10 a day, or 50 different plant foods a week. There's different ways of sort of doing it, but definitely increasing that, and lots of herbs and spices. So getting those in as well, really anti-inflammatory. So that sort of anti-inflammatory diet, if people are not quite sure about what an anti-inflammatory diet is, Mediterranean type diet is sort of a really good sort of place to start. So thinking about how they eat in sort of those countries can be really helpful. So I think there's definitely just some simple diet steps that people can take. Sleep, I think, is absolutely, from a lifestyle perspective, if we're not sleeping, our immune system isn't repairing itself. We're not getting that cellular repair around the body. So I think you've got to optimize sleep. So little simple things you can do, just, go to bed half an hour earlier, turn off your screens an hour before bed, a bit more if you can. But, if you're one of these people who's on screens until right before you go to bed, just half an hour now, just try and build it up slowly, get off the screens earlier in the day. Getting outside in morning light, first thing in the morning, just, resetting that circadian rhythm, I think really important. So I think sleep's a really, really, really key one. And I think if you've got an autoimmune disease, I think exercise as well. I think with a lot of the autoimmune conditions, because the fatigue is so bad, it's very easy to stop exercising and to feel we become very deconditioned. And then it can be really hard to get back into exercise. And I don't like to talk, I actually don't use the word exercise. I use the word strength or movement, because I think you say exercise and people think they've got to be out like pounding in the gym or running, and you don't. If it's just gentle movement, even if you just get up in the morning and just stretch your body for 5 minutes, I think the key with exercise or with strength, with movement, is consistency over the intensity, particularly if you've got an autoimmune disease. So I think, any little steps that you can make forwards in that sort of movement is going to help the body.
Great. All right. I'll tell you what, Nicole, we covered a lot of stuff here, and we're going to have to take a quick commercial break and come back. So I want everybody to do a couple lunges to the refrigerator, grab your favorite vegetable, eat that on the break. And then we're going to come back. We're going to do some rapid fire questions. If you're up for that, we're just going to have a little bit of fun before we sign off. So yeah, everybody, I'm thinking sweet potato. I don't know. Sweet potato, maybe a cucumber. We'll see what we come back with. We will be right back after we take a quick listen to our sponsors. This is your weekly dose of Dr. Cindy, the Positively Altered podcast. Stop. Hit that follow button now and spread the love with Positively Altered. Welcome back. I'm Dr. Cindy. This is the Positively Altered podcast with my guest today, Nicole Goode, all the way from across the pond in the UK. She's rounding out the end of her day. We're just starting ours during the recording, but we've got some fun questions. You ready, Nicole?
Yeah, I'm ready. Let's go.
All right. What is one article of clothing you wish you never had to wear again?
Ooh, hot pants.
Hot pants?
Yeah, don't want to wear those. Short shorts. in case the terminology is different over there.
Short shorts. I think we call them Daisy Dukes over here.
Yeah, okay, Daisy Dukes. Yeah.
Okay, so no butt cheeks hanging out. Never again.
Can't stand them.
Listen, I think as we get older, that should probably be banned for most people. Hard to pull that off. All right. If you had to pick a place to live that was at least 100 miles away from where you currently reside, where would you go?
France or Mallorca. So I'm part French, so I have a real affinity to France. And I grew up part of the time in Mallorca, so that's like second home to me anyway. So very easy for me to live in either of those. By the sea, definitely somewhere by the sea.
Oh, and you've picked beautiful places at least, right? So it's good. If you could be any superhero or cartoon character, who would you be?
Oh, that's a tough one. One that can fly, because I hate flying in planes. So if I can fly myself, that'd be great. Or teleport somewhere.
Oh, I think the teleporting would be.
I think the teleporting maybe, because then I can just sort of teleport to the beach for an hour or so.
Oh my God, wouldn't that be awesome?
That would be great.
Like right in between patients, you got 2 minutes. You're like,
yeah, I'll be like, for a couple of minutes, I'm just going to pop to Barbados.
Right, we're going to go get, and I'm going to say it in your way, we're going to go get our vitamin D, right? Yeah. Then we'll be right back.
Exactly. Sounds great.
I love it. All right. What would you consider to be the best invention ever?
Oh, best invention ever. I don't know. I think I could think of a few that we need that maybe like.
Oh, let's do that.
Yeah, maybe like shuts off technology at like 9 o'clock at night. Just shuts everything down. So if somebody can invent something that does that, so that we go back to like not being contactable after 9 o'clock, and then it sort of switches back on maybe at like 8 o'clock in the morning. I think that would be a great invention.
So Nicole, I'm going to date myself here. Okay. And I don't know how old you are, but I don't know if you remember. Do you remember when TVs actually did that and you just got the fuzzy screen? And even though it was still on,
No.
see, you're not old enough for that.
No.
Okay. So I'm sure there's somebody out there that's at least as old as I am or older, but yes, like if you woke up at 1 o'clock in the morning because you couldn't sleep and you turned on the television, it was just this fuzzy screen. There was
really?
There was no
it.
programming.
That was the greatest invention. That was it.
Right, so it's still on. I mean, technically you could turn the TV on, but there was nothing to watch. So you were sort of forced to go count sheep and get back to bed because, there was no real, what is it? The Housewives of the UK on at 3 o'clock in the morning as a rerun. You just couldn't watch it.
Well, whatever that was the greatest invention. And I think we need to bring it back.
I do not disagree with you. I think, yes, I'm on board for sure. All right. Dress shoes, gym shoes, or flip flops?
Oh, dress shoes. I love heels. Yeah, I do love heels.
Okay. All right. Well, see, you're not old enough.
Not great for the posture and everything like that, but yeah. I've started reformer Pilates and she's working on those hamstrings because they're a bit tight from all the high heels, but but I do love a good pair of shoes.
Yeah, I'm going to make it mental note for us to do this again in 10 years and we'll see if you change your mind as you get older.
Probably.
You may be pulling out the gym shoes or the flip-flops.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, there's no doubt. And lastly, Nicole, what was your favorite thing about doing the podcast today?
I think raising awareness for people. I think having conversations with people like you, just raising awareness, getting the messages out there. So, like we said, people get mismanaged because they don't know, they don't have that knowledge. So I think doing these things and being able to speak freely as well around maybe some controversial things and just get messages out there to people. I think that's really important.
It's fantastic. So that being the case, how do people get the book, find you, work with you, know what you're up to?
Yeah, so the book is available worldwide. It's on Amazon, which is probably the easiest place for everybody to go and get it. It's also in bookshops. So it's in bookshops over in the States as well as here. My website is goodhealth.uk. Good's got the E on the end. And contact me on social media. Always happy to chat to people. So I'm good_health on Instagram. Always happy to answer, be speaking in direct messages and things like that. People reach out all the time.
This has been absolutely fantastic. Thank you so much for being here today, Nicole. If you want to learn more about what's going on in my world, please check me out at drscindyspeaks.com or shoot us an email. We'd love to hear from you at hello@drscindyspeaks. You can pick up my book, Positively Altered, Finding Happiness at the Bottom of a Chemo Bag. And Amazon is probably the best place to. And order both of them. Get Nicole's book and get my book. You can read hers first, use mine second. It's okay. But pick them up both. Pick them up both. That was a good way to make a recommendation, wasn't it? Pick them both up and give them a good read. You like that? How I threw that in, Nicole? Give it a good read and let us both know what you think. Today has been an absolute gift. I love educating as well. I think we put out some really great information. Make sure you all follow up. If there's any concerns that anything we mentioned hit home, And then I also hope that just by listening to Nicole, you have been left positively altered.